What is up, crypto crew, and welcome back to Bitcoin Easy.io. It is Sunday, July 6, 2025, and we are staring down the barrel of the weekly close. And let me tell you guys, Bitcoin is putting on a bit of a drama show this week. We're seeing some absolutely massive resistance just hours out. Is it going to break through, or are we in for a bit of a tumble? We're going to dive into the charts in just a second. And as if the chart wasn't spicy enough, we have the upcoming tariffs deadline looming. That could definitely throw a wrench in the works of the broader markets. And you know how crypto loves to react to a bit of global economic chaos. So grab your coffee, get comfy, and let's get into the analysis. But before we do, if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our daily updates. And hey, while you're at it, a little tap on the like button goes a long way. Quick disclaimer, this is all for educational purpose and is not financial advice. Please do your own research. All right, let's pull up these charts. All right, guys, here we are on the weekly chart. And of course, this is exactly what we've been anticipating here on the channel. This key resistance here to be massive, right? Let me remind you, a few days ago, the whole market has been going crazy about that we're breaking out, that we're going to new all-time highs and so on, because we of course broke out on this descending channel or this bull flag, whatever you want to look at it as, on the smaller time frames for sure. But I told you guys, we need to focus on those horizontal levels, the key horizontal levels, to really confirm that breakout and to break pivot points across the board, right? We looked at the 2-day chart, the 3-day chart, the weekly chart, and the daily chart before, and we really marked those levels and made clear where we get the confirmation from that we're breaking out and headed up towards the targets of 118 and 120K, and then eventually upwards towards 130 to even $140,000, right? And that brings, of course, this broader trend here into play that we've been looking at. But there we saw also something on the monthly chart where we saw that there's massive resistance coming in from a trend that's even larger than the one that we see here on the weekly chart, right? So bear with me, guys. I'll show you everything that I'm talking about here in a second, but we got to keep that in mind always. I just recorded another video with Josh the other day where we've been talking about Fibonacci levels, and that video actually dropped on the channel on Saturday. If you haven't checked it out already, make sure to do so. And there I was also talking about how the importance of horizontal levels, right? We can clearly see here that on a weekly chart, there's no real descending channel. There's only one pivot point that's very clear. That's the prior high here on a closing basis. And of course, if we know what market structure means, to really get a confirmation here for this higher low, this first real structure point in the market. And guys, this is nothing new. This whole range here, while we were trading straight up here, I've been telling you guys, we're expecting a bit of a pullback here. We said here for this uptrend, it's extremely unsustainable as a straight line up. We want to get a higher low here. And then of course, to confirm a higher low, we need to break the previous high. And that's the same thing still here, guys. We're looking at this green line. That's the key line that we've been looking at here. You can see since we printed this candle here, basically, since the middle of May, right? So this is still the exact point that we want to break above here on a weekly closing basis, right above $109,100. If we start seeing weekly closes above there, then of course we're printing a higher high, and for that also confirming this higher low here now. And then we have a first real structure point here in this uptrend here on the larger time frames. But so far, rejection right under this spot. Of course, 13 hours left in this candle. We can still close above the prior highs here. Then follow this up next week with another bullish candle to really confirm that breakout. Therefore, a lot of work for the bulls still remains to be done. And the other thing that I told you guys is that I want to see that confirmation, at least on the daily chart, also above the pivot point, the key level that we need to break the prior high in the downtrend to get at least confirmation over there that the trend here, this broader trend, is continuing, right? But we did not get that either, and I'll get back to that in a second. First, I want to talk about the larger trend that's of course existing on the monthly chart. And then I'm coming of course to this one here, where we found this dynamic resistance line that has been formed by the prior cycle tops. So here we have the 2017 20K top. Here we're connecting the two last cycle tops here with the current ones here in the $109,000 range. And there's one thing, guys, that I've been talking about here for a while, that from this perspective, the cycle top is in, right? For now, we have this as a confirmed trend line here. And of course, the trend is your friend until the end. If we would now break out of an already very bullish trend, of course, where we have higher highs here since 2018, and we could track it back even more if we put it into a logarithmic chart. But what really matters is these three tops anyways. This is where the market has been structured in the way that we know it nowadays. Before that, there was really nothing else around but Bitcoin. So therefore here, this really the key trend line to look at. And yeah, guys, so if we get a breakout here, then of course that would go absolutely parabolic, because we're already in a bullish trend, and then a breakout out of a bullish trend to the upside would mean that we can see massive price action here and much higher price targets. And then considering statistics and everything, that there's probability that we see a top here during this year still and potentially in the end of the year in Q4 of 2025, then of course there's not a lot of room here left to the upside, and we could see a top somewhere in the $120,000 to $130,000 range, right? If we consider this trend line here, we can of course break above it, but the probability is still that we stay below it here on a closing basis. And then also from a Fibonacci extension perspective that we've been looking at here on the channel, where we identified that the next targets are likely here in the $118,000 to $120,000 range. Then we also took the measurement of the pattern on the daily chart that also gave us targets in the $118,000 to $120,000 range. So from that perspective, this all lines up very strongly here from a resistance perspective. But for now, as you see, not just locally, not just in the current range where we printed these 2 or 3 tops, right? We're finding strong resistance, but also historically from very, very strong trends that are still active in the charts. And this is something that you need to respect, especially such a strong trend line that is clearly visible on very large time frames and connects very, very significant tops. So just having that out of the way, now we need to identify, of course, the levels on the smaller time frames that could give us confirmation that we're breaking out of this multi-year trend here. And for that, next thing we do here is we go down into the daily chart. Here we got it. And guys, this is exactly what I was talking about here. This is the pattern that we measured the other day. There we saw that to the downside. We can just do that again here. If we just take a measurement of this, the size of this pattern here, you can look at it as a falling wedge, descending channel, bull flag, whatever you want. One thing doesn't change. The measurement is the same here. And there we can see that to the downside, if we broke down here now, of course, it will take us a little further down here before we break that trend. That would take us exactly to our target area that I've been talking about here all along on the channel, where I told you guys, even for the last week, while we are pumping here massively, I told you we still need to break this pivot point here. This is the real structure points here in this range. A high, a lower high, and by definition to break out of a trend like that, we need to break the previous high on a horizontal level as well. And therefore we're still looking here as well for a close above $110,300 on a daily closing basis with confirmation to really get confirmation that we're continuing upwards towards $118,000 and $120,000. That has not happened. Everyone has been celebrating the breakout out of this diagonal trend line here. But as I tell you guys all of the time, we take horizontals over diagonals any single day. And then if we take the measurement here to the upside as well, if we were to break out from here, now you can see that takes us exactly to $118,000. So that, of course, an area, if we then can get up there and close up there, then we're right at the resistance of this broader trend where you saw that the target, if we continue now trading along that resistance line, that is still at $120,000. So from that perspective, if we now break out here and get to that target, that could then potentially give us our cycle top in that range, right? If we then start breaking out of that one and start closing above there, and then that drifts over as a confirmed breakout in the monthly chart, for example, then of course, guys, this is massive, and then it's likely that we're going parabolic to much higher price targets than most traders are anticipating, way above 150K. So keep that in mind, and for that, of course, a lot needs to happen. If you look at it from a broader perspective, how Bitcoin has developed over the years, then we realize that this is the first time that we really get mainstream adoption as far as big corporations and governments go, and that money is flowing in. So really, what we need now is the retail to really jump on board. Of course, there's so much fear in the market because of all the events that are coming up, because of the uncertainty about the whole Middle East situation, the tariffs, and then also, of course, the entire situation with the inflation and the interest rates. So all that is not really playing in the favor of risk assets, although it looked like the Fed was being pushed into a position where it has to be more dovish and that we can expect rate cuts soon. And as long as the uncertainty in the market persists, then we cannot expect massive bullish moves here, right? So keep that in mind, and therefore we still want to focus on those horizontal levels, and then those larger trends come into play, but that resistance is more likely to continue as a resistance than that we break it and go to much higher price targets in times like this. If now the whole economy, the global situation with the tariffs and everything calms down, and we see that the Fed is taking a more dovish approach, then of course things can go crazy and people will be more willing to start investing in risk assets, and then we can see much higher price targets. But for now, we got to be conservative with our view. We got to be realistic, and this is what's on the table right now. And the first thing we got to see is that we can get up to those $120,000 level, that we can go into that $120,000 range. But for that to break and for us to really go parabolic, of course, the retail really needs to jump in and pick up the spot action so we can get those explosive price moves. Okay guys, this is basically my view on the market at the moment, where not only my technical analysis comes from. Of course, I combine data analysis with technical analysis, and I also keep my eyes on the fundamentals. Although I don't always do that in quiet market situations, I let the charts tell me what's going on. But I'm generally interested in the current macroeconomics and geopolitics. And therefore, if you take everything into consideration, of course, you got a much broader image. You just got to be realistic with it. And you can't be fooled by all these Twitter accounts and people that constantly keep talking about alt season, and they draw up some beautiful patterns in the charts and tell you breakout, new all-time highs are coming and all that. You have to know where the key levels are, right? I tweeted about it the other day, a couple of days ago or yesterday even, that I can't see these accounts anymore. They are posting about alt season. Guys, Bitcoin is so dominant in this cycle. We have governments, we have big companies stocking up their reserves with Bitcoin. They're not buying Pepe or some crazy meme coin that's just going viral right now. They're buying Bitcoin. They're looking at this long term. They have to have some sort of conservative view as far as their investments go. They can't just gamble on altcoins and meme coins and stuff like that. And the retail is just not in it yet, right? And therefore, all the money is flowing into the big assets, Ethereum, Solana, and mainly Bitcoin. We don't have a chance that alt season is kicking in yet, right? And that also brings me to the Bitcoin dominance chart, right? This is something that I spoke about here since I started this channel, or picked it up again here early on in this year. Like, I've been doing these videos every day now for 6 months. And as you know, if you've been watching, my opinion has not changed, guys. I'm still talking about a post-summer top here. And I've been doing so since we've been here in this range. I told you guys that it's now likely that we're going down to $74,000 or $72,000 even. That range down here was my target. This is exactly where we went down to. And to come out of that, something huge needs to happen. And as I said again and again, we need the retail to really jump in. So guys, let's talk about the key levels here as well on the daily chart. And I go into the 4-hourly chart, and then we go take a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart. And then I show you guys exactly what I mean over there as far as that trend goes. And here we can see the pivot point still exactly the same, where we just spoke about 110,300 to the upside. Then locally, we've been printing this bullish structure here, where we, of course, printing higher highs and higher lows. Here, of course, now we fell back below that dynamic trend line that turned back into resistance now. We got in rejection right at the prior high here, stayed below the pivot point. Therefore, this trend is not broken yet here. Not on the daily chart, not on the larger time frames either. So, and then here to the downside, we of course want to hold this higher low now, $105,600. Then very likely that we fall lower here, back to the support in the 100K to $98,000 range. Just below there as well, the 38.2 on the Fibonacci retracement of this entire uptrend here. And yeah, guys, very, very strong support here in this area. But likely, if it breaks down here, this trend, there we come down to the weekly support area, then in the $90,000 to $88,000 range, which of course is, I'm still biased to that's the likely move here. And I told you guys, my bias will flip bullish when we break that pivot point here, at least on the daily chart, and we start closing back above $110,300. Talking of which, a lot of people have been celebrating the breakout here already on the 4-hourly chart. And as I told you guys, of course, there can be a 4-hourly chart where we got to be aware of the high time frame resistance above us here on a horizontal level. And that is, of course, the red box here. That's the weekly level that we have been saying that this is the strong resistance that we need to break into, and then also confirm that we broke it on the larger time frames, right? We can see here we had this same channel basically that we saw on the daily chart here, connecting all these tops. We got the breakout here. We got a few retests of it, or at least one retest here. And then with the second retest, we broke down below it. And you can see we've drawn this line here from the bodies. We have perfect connection with all the tops here. And that is now, again, our current resistance point. Then we've been trying to confirm this ascending trend line here. And here we have it drawn as the most generous line connecting the bodies. And we can see we tried to confirm this third touch point here, and now had a bearish break of it. Of course, pretty neutral. We're right between a rock and a hard place here, getting support from the 50 EMA. And now the resistance is coming in from the 21 EMA, which is of course trading right above us here in perfect alignment with the resistance line of the descending channel that now turned into resistance again. So really, really tough not to crack here. And therefore, again, here to flip bullish, at least on the 4-hourly time frame, we want to get back above that resistance line, above that key pivot point here. And there the key number is right below $108,700. If we can reclaim that range, then we can expect another move upwards to test the high time frame resistance. And then if we manage to close above $110,300 on a daily closing basis, and then also see a break on a weekly closing basis of that, then we have indication that we're continuing upwards to $120,000. But if we see a multi-month resistance right here, even from this dynamic perspective, and then celebrate a break of that by just looking at a 4-hourly chart, that is pretty damn aggressive, guys. And that's why I always told you guys, we want to get this breakout here. Right here, we broke the pivot point, but we want to get this breakout here confirmed and to drift over into the daily chart. And therefore, we really want to break the prior high here in this downtrend on the larger time frames. Here you can see it very clearly. It's almost the exact same number as well here on the 4-hourly chart, right at $110,300. So 4-hourly closes above there that then drift over and confirm on the daily chart. That give us clear indication here that we're continuing upwards towards $118,000 and $120,000. Of course, that is no guarantee for that, but there's really high probability if we achieve that due to the extremely strong resistance that we had in that area previously. So if we break strong resistance, then of course we can always expect a big move to the upside. The same, if we break a strong high time frame support level, then we can expect a big move to the downside. Right guys, this is it basically here. And here of course we want to hold this here. We now broke it here from a dynamic support perspective. We're holding the 50 MA, and here to hold the structure where we're printing these high lows, of course, we want to stay above the pivot point here as well, which is right at $107,500. 4-hourly closes below, then likely take us back down here to test the 200 AMA here on the 4-hourly chart. If we close below there, then likely that we start dropping down to these support levels in the $100,000 to $98,000 range. If then that breaks down, then that's very clear confirmation that we're going down to the weekly support level in the $90,000 to $88,000 range. Right guys, so now you have some really nice ranges that you can look at and potentially find some trades in here across different time frames. Important is also to keep an eye on the Bitcoin dominance charts, just to keep perspective of what the market is doing. We've been looking at this chart here a lot, right guys? And you know that a lot of influencers, a lot of crypto ex-heroes, they have been posting about this chart, that Bitcoin dominance this time around will be different, it won't go as high. And I've been telling you guys that I expect it to go to the area where it always has been going to the 70 to 74% range here. And people have been telling me that they've been drawing trend lines here, some crazy stuff, connecting this range up here with this top, and then screaming here that this is breaking down at this point sometime last year even. And I saw that already in the cycle here when we had this fake pump in 2019 when they were connecting this top here. And so much stuff that Bitcoin dominance will eventually drop because of the presence of so many altcoins and stable coins and so on. But the truth is really that this cycle, Bitcoin dominance, in my opinion, could go even higher than it usually does, right? Because we see that the big mainstream adoption is mainly happening with Bitcoin, right? There's not so much talk about altcoins. Of course, there's ETH and Solana and some of the big players that of course are getting attention as well from these banks and governments and so on. But the main focus is on Bitcoin. And as long as that is the case, then of course we expect most of the money to flow into Bitcoin, right? And for that, we could easily break that resistance here. We can see a very strong double top formation from the top here in 2019 and 2021. 2017, we also topped out in that area. But here on a closing basis even, you can see that we did not start printing lower highs, maybe on a very, very minimal scale here. But on a trading basis, we actually continue to print higher highs here. So I expect the price, still the same thing, to get up here to at least 71%. And then it remains to be seen if we start closing above there, then we can expect Bitcoin dominance to go even higher than it usually has done. But still here, very, very strong from this perspective, from historic data and everything. Very, very strong probability that we're continuing upwards in this area before we even can expect the Bitcoin dominance chart to start breaking down. So there is my view on things. As you see, nothing has changed. I'm not one of those crypto traders or wannabe traders that just post random charts and whenever the market is making a move, their bias flips into that direction. I still know exactly what I'm looking at, what I'm waiting for, where my confirmation levels lay. And that doesn't change. I mean, I told you guys in many videos before that if we break those, then I'm happy to flip my bias and turn completely bullish and to start longing to much higher price targets. But before that happens, the charts just don't give me any reason to. And I like to block out the noise. I don't listen to all these idiots, what their opinions are and stuff. I mean, sorry to insult anyone, but that is just my opinion. Because if you are out there posting charts and you clearly don't know what you're talking about, all you're doing is you're causing damage to people that know even less, and they have some sort of hope in that what the people are posting carries some weight, and most of it is just noise, right? So be careful, guys, who you listen to. Always do your own research, form your own opinion, and don't just trust people blindly. By the way, guys, I really recommend that you check out the series here on the channel, The Journey. The playlist is right up there now. Episode 9 now. I just dropped it on Saturday, where I went through Fibonacci tools with Josh. And maybe you want to skip part 1 if you already know how to set up TradingView, but everything after that is really, really good content for you if you want to get better at analyzing chart and eventually becoming a successful trader. Of course, none of it is financial advice, all for educational purpose, but guys, I guarantee you, if you're struggling, this is going to set you on the right path. And then you don't have to listen to all these clowns anymore. Then you can draw up your own charts and form your own ideas based on those. And that's a wrap on the Bitcoin charts for today. A lot to keep an eye on as we head into the weekly close. It's going to be a nail biter for sure. Now, for all the day-to-day action and quick TA updates, make sure you're following me over on X. For your daily dose of fundamental news, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. All the links are down below. And get ready for tomorrow's video, where we'll not only be checking back into Bitcoin, but also diving into the top 5 altcoins to see what they're up to. You won't want to miss that one. If you found any value in today's video, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you're first to know when a new video drops. Alright guys, that's it for me now. I'm out of here, and as always, happy trading and see you soon.